The day everyone decided I was the problem. Throwaway account. For obvious reasons. If you ask my family, the story starts on Thanksgiving morning. That's the day I lost my mind. The day I overreacted. The day I destroyed my own marriage. They still talk about it like it came out of nowhere. It didn't. That morning started quietly. Too quietly. The house smelled like sage and butter. My wife was already dressed, hair done, moving through the kitchen with that calm efficiency she always had when company was coming. Music played softly from her phone on the counter, some playlist she'd been obsessed with lately. I stood in the doorway watching her, trying to decide how to say what I needed to say. I didn't have a speech planned. I didn't even have accusations ready. Just a boundary. "Hey," I said. She turned, smiling automatically. "Yeah, I don't want Evan here today." The smile froze. "What?" she asked, like she hadn't heard me. "I don't want my brother in the house," I repeated. My voice sounded steady, almost distant. "If he comes, I'm leaving." For a second, she just stared at me. Then her face shifted, not into anger, not into guilt, but into something closer to offense. "Are you serious right now?" she said. "Yes." She laughed, sharp and humorless. "You're really doing this today?" "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm just telling you what I'm going to do." She crossed her arms, studying me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into her kitchen. "You can't just ban my family from our house," she said. "He's not your family," I replied. That's when her eyes hardened. "I don't know what's gotten into you lately," she said slowly, "but you're being really unfair." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. That silence, my refusal to justify myself, was what really set her off. Within an hour, my phone started vibrating nonstop. My mom called first. "What's going on with you?" she asked, not even saying hello. "Your wife is crying. She says you're threatening to leave if Evan comes over." "I'm not threatening anything," I said. "I'm just not staying if he's here." "Why?" she demanded. I hesitated, and that hesitation sealed my fate. "So, you don't even have a reason?" my mom snapped. "Do you hear how cruel that sounds?" Then my dad texted, "You need to get your emotions under control." Then my brother. Just one word. Relax. No one asked what had happened. No one asked if something was wrong. They'd already decided the problem was me. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone buzzing in my hands, realizing something important. Whatever story they'd been told, it wasn't new. And it wasn't kind. 3 weeks earlier, I would have laughed if you told me my wife was cheating on me. Not because I thought she was perfect, but because I trusted her. Our marriage wasn't dramatic. No screaming matches.
No easy silences.
We were comfortable.
Familiar.
Safe. Or so I thought. The first thing that changed wasn't her affection. It was her precision. She started treating her phone like it was an extension of her body. It never sat face up anymore. She angled the screen away without thinking, even when she was just checking the weather. She didn't stop laughing with me. She didn't stop kissing me goodbye. She just stopped being careless. She'd say she was going out to run errands and come back freshly showered, hair damp, cheeks flushed. When I asked why she'd shower after buying groceries, she'd shrug and say, "I felt gross." She started wearing perfume during the day. When I teased her about it, she smiled and said, "Am I not allowed to want to feel nice?" And every time I hesitated, every time my gut whispered that something was off, she'd wrap her arms around me and whisper the same words. "You're my safe place." I clung to that sentence like it was a promise. The message. The night everything cracked open wasn't dramatic. My phone was dead. I was waiting on a call from work. I grabbed hers from the couch without thinking. We'd always had that kind of relationship.
No locked phones. No suspicion.
As the screen lit up, a notification slid down. I miss you already." That was it. No heart emoji.
No obvious flirtation.
But my chest tightened, so suddenly it felt like I'd missed a step on the stairs. I told myself it was nothing. A coworker. A friend. Then I unlocked the phone. The conversation opened automatically. I scrolled. At first, it was subtle.
Familiar worms.
Jokes that felt too intimate, but still deniable. Complaints about stress and feeling unseen. Then I scrolled further. Photos. Pictures taken in my house. My couch. My kitchen counter. The corner of the living room where we'd taken Christmas photos last year. Inside jokes I'd heard before, but never questioned. And then the picture that ended everything. A man's wrist resting on her thigh. I recognized the tattoo instantly. My brother's tattoo. I didn't breathe for a long time. The quiet before the fall. I put the phone down exactly where I'd found it. I sat there in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of her shower running upstairs. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There wasn't. What scared me most wasn't the betrayal. It was how easily everything suddenly made sense. The carefulness. The rehearsed affection. The way my brother had been around more often lately, dropping by unannounced, texting her directly instead of me. I realized something else, too. This hadn't just started. It had been happening long enough for them to get comfortable. Long enough to stop being afraid. When she came downstairs, wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me like nothing in the world was wrong. I smiled back. Because somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't a moment for confrontation. It was the moment before the storm. And storms don't start loud. They start quiet. I didn't confront her right away. That's the part people don't understand when I tell them later. They assume I exploded the moment I saw the messages, that I stormed upstairs and demanded answers. I didn't. I sat there on the couch, staring at the dark TV screen, watching my own reflection breathe. By the time she came downstairs, towel wrapped around her hair, she looked relaxed, comfortable, like someone who didn't realize the ground beneath her feet was about to disappear. She smiled at me. "You okay?" she asked casually, like she was asking if I wanted tea. "Yeah," I said. "Can we talk for a minute?" Something flickered in her eyes. Not panic. Recognition. She sat across from me, crossing her legs. Still calm. Still in control. "What's up?" she asked. I took a breath so deep it hurt. I saw the messages. Silence. Not shock. Not confusion. Just silence. Then she tilted her head slightly and asked, "Which ones?" That's when I knew. "I saw Evan's tattoo," I said quietly. Her shoulders dropped. Not in guilt. In relief. She exhaled slowly, leaned back against the couch, and smiled. A small, tired smile. "Well," she said, "I guess that's done."
Ist her.
She chuckled under her breath and added, "I don't have to deal with this anymore." That sentence hit harder than any screaming match ever could. How she explained it. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't even apologize. She spoke like she was explaining a scheduling conflict. "It's been over a year," she said. "I didn't plan it. It just happened." Over a year. A year of shared holidays. Family dinners. Smiling photos. I felt something inside me go hollow. She kept talking. "Evan understands me," she said gently. "He listens. He notices things. With you, I've felt invisible for a long time." I asked her when I'd stopped mattering. She shrugged. "That's not really fair," she said. "You weren't bad. You were just absent." Absent. I worked long hours. I paid our bills. I showed up. I loved her. But suddenly none of that counted. She talked about the future, like I wasn't sitting there. "We didn't want to hurt you," she said. "That's why we waited." I laughed once. I couldn't help it. "You waited a year?" She frowned, like I was being unreasonable. The moment I realized, she was already gone. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer right away. She just looked at the floor, then nodded. Yes. That was it.
No hesitation. No guilt.
She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't ask me to fight. She said, "I think it's best if you take some time. We can talk logistics later." Logistics. Like I was a roommate moving out. I stood up, my legs shaking. She didn't follow me. She just watched as I packed a duffel bag. I kept waiting for something, anything, to crack her composure. It never did. As I zipped the bag, she said almost kindly, Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I looked at her then, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize the person in front of me anymore. Why I didn't tell anyone. I left the house after midnight. I sat in my car for almost an hour before driving anywhere, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. You okay? Haven't heard from you. The audacity of it stole my breath. I didn't respond. I didn't call my parents. I didn't tell my friends. Because something about the whole thing felt rehearsed. Like they'd been preparing for this moment longer than I had. And I was right. The shift. Over the next few days, the atmosphere changed. My mom called and asked if I was doing all right emotionally. My dad told me I should consider counseling before making rash decisions. Friends started acting careful around me, like I might break. No one asked what happened. They already knew, or at least they thought they did. I realized then that this wasn't just an affair. It was a narrative. And I was already the villain. The decision to watch instead of speak. That's when I made a decision that probably saved my sanity. I stopped talking. I stopped defending myself. I let them believe whatever story they'd been told. Because arguing without proof only makes you look guilty. And I needed proof. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who think they already know the truth. I felt it everywhere. At family dinners, I wasn't invited to anymore. In the pauses on phone calls that used to feel easy. In the way people asked how I was holding up without ever asking what happened. They didn't need to ask. They had a version. And in that version, I was unstable. The slow exile. My mom started calling every few days, her voice soft, careful. Are you eating? She'd ask. Are you sleeping? Have you thought about talking to someone? It sounded like concern. It felt like an evaluation. My dad was quieter. When he did reach out, it was to suggest space. You should give your wife some room, he said once. You don't want to push her away.
Push her away. As if I still had that power.
My brother didn't call. He texted. Short messages. Neutral. Polite. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. Every message felt like a test. Like proof that he could act calm while I unraveled. Friends began choosing sides without ever announcing it. Group chats went silent when I joined. Invitations stopped coming. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't accused anyone publicly. But I was already being treated like someone dangerous. What the cameras showed me, watching the footage became a ritual. I told myself it was for documentation. Evidence.
Control.
But sometimes I think I watched because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes over and over just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. My brother walking in with groceries. My wife cooking dinner for him. The casual intimacy of two people who'd stopped pretending they were doing something wrong. But worse than the physical closeness was the conversation. They talked about me like a problem to manage. He's been really cold lately, my wife said in one clip. I think he's depressed, my brother replied. We just need to be careful, she said again. I don't want him doing something irrational. They practiced concern. They framed betrayal as protection. And slowly, painfully, I understood something important. This wasn't just about love. It was about control. The night I almost spoke. One night, I nearly broke. My mom invited me over for dinner. Just her and my dad. No brother. No wife. I thought, maybe this is where I finally tell the truth. We sat at the table like strangers. Halfway through the meal, my dad cleared his throat. We're worried about you, he said. Your wife says you've been emotionally distant for a long time, my mom added gently. That you scared her. Scared her. That word hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth. Then I stopped. Because I realized something terrifying. If I spoke now, without proof, I wouldn't sound rational. I'd sound exactly like the person they'd been describing. So I nodded. I understand, I said. And that's when I knew. They'd already chosen who to believe. When they finally came clean, 2 weeks later, they asked to meet. My wife. My brother. They chose a neutral place. A coffee shop.
Public.
Controlled. They sat across from me like adults handling a difficult conversation. We wanted to be honest,
my wife said.
My brother nodded solemnly. We didn't want you to hear this from someone else. They told me they were in love, that it happened unexpectedly, that they wanted to handle things with maturity and respect. My brother thanked me, actually thanked me, for being understanding, he said. I know this can't be easy. I watched them perform sincerity like it was rehearsed. They didn't deny the affair. They just rebranded it. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I nodded. And then I made a suggestion. The idea. Maybe we should still do Thanksgiving, I said. They looked surprised. Really? My wife asked. Yeah, I said. One last normal moment. Closure. My brother smiled, relieved. That's very mature of you, he said. They agreed instantly. That's when I knew they thought they'd won. The calm before the storm. After that meeting, the tone shifted. My parents relaxed. Friends softened. The concern faded into awkward sympathy. I was no longer unstable. I was resigned. And resignation made me safe. Behind the scenes, I organized everything. Messages.
Dates.
Videos. I labeled files. Backed them up. Prepared for every possible denial. I didn't sleep much. But I was calm. Because for the first time since everything fell apart, I wasn't reacting. I was waiting. They thought it would be quiet. They were wrong. Thanksgiving morning arrived colder than usual. Not weather-wise. Emotionally. I woke up before my alarm, heart already pounding, like my body knew what my mind had spent weeks preparing for. The house was quiet when I got there. I let myself in with my own key, the sound of the lock clicking behind me louder than it should have been. For a moment, I just stood there. This house had been my home. The place where I planned a future. Where I imagined kids running down the hallway. Where I thought I was safe. Now it felt like a stage. The cameras were already rolling. I checked my phone once. Everything was backed up. Multiple copies.
Cloud.
External drive. There would be no accidental loss. I set the phone down and started helping with preparations like nothing was wrong. Playing normal. My wife arrived shortly after, carrying grocery bags.
She smiled when she saw me.
A careful smile. You're here early, she said. Figured I'd help, I replied. She studied my face, searching for something. Anger, tension, regret. I gave her nothing. That unsettled her. For the next hour, we existed in the same space without really acknowledging each other. She cooked. I set the table. We moved around each other with the precision of people who knew every step but didn't dare touch. Then, Evan arrived. My brother. He walked in like he always had, confident, relaxed, completely at ease in a space that was no longer mine emotionally but still mine legally. Hey, he said, nodding at me.
Hey, I replied.
That was it.
No tensión. No confrontación.
And that terrified him more than if I'd screamed. The arrival of everyone else. By early afternoon, the house filled with voices. My parents arrived first. My mom hugged me longer than usual, like she was trying to reassure herself that I was stable. My dad gave me a firm pat on the shoulder and avoided my eyes.
Aunts.
Uncles. Cousins. Laughter bounced off the walls. Plates clinked. Drinks were poured. From the outside, it looked like a perfect holiday. From the inside, it felt like waiting for an earthquake. I caught pieces of conversation drifting toward me. He seems better today. Maybe it was just stress. Time heals things. No one knew they were narrating their own downfall. Watching them together. I watched my wife and brother carefully. They were cautious. Not affectionate. Not cold either. Just distant enough to look respectful. But I saw it. The shared glances. The inside jokes cut short. The way they gravitated toward each other without realizing it. At one point, my brother leaned toward her and whispered something. She smiled before she remembered where she was. I noticed my mother watching them too. Her brow furrowed. Doubt flickered for the first time. The weight of silence. As dinner approached, the tension thickened. People sensed something was off but couldn't name it. Conversations stalled. Laughter felt forced. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. This was the moment I'd imagined 100 times. I wondered briefly if I was about to destroy everything. Then I remembered the nights I sat alone, questioning my sanity.
And the doubt vanished.
Dinner is served. Everyone gathered around the table. Plates were filled. Wine glasses clinked. My wife sat across from me. My brother sat beside her. My parents sat at either end. This wasn't accidental. It was symbolic. As forks hovered and people prepared to eat, I stood up. Chairs scraped. The room went quiet. I just want to say something before we eat, I said. Smiles froze. My wife's face drained of color. My brother's posture stiffened. My mom looked confused. My dad looked concerned. I took a breath. I think honesty matters, I continued. Especially with family. No one interrupted me. I reached for my phone and connected it to the TV. The first clip. The screen lit up. A message thread appeared. Names blurred. Dates clear. A year ago. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Then photos. My living room. My couch. My wife smiling at someone behind the camera. Then a video. My brother's voice.
Clear. Familiar.
My place or yours? My mother gasped. My father's face went rigid. The collapse. The room unraveled in real time. My aunt whispered, "Oh my God." My cousin stood up, backing away like the air had changed. My brother tried to speak. This isn't. But the next clip played. My wife laughing, saying his name, saying it softly. She slid out of her chair, hit the floor. Someone screamed. My mom covered her mouth, shaking. My dad stared at the table like it might swallow him. No one looked at me. They couldn't. The choice to leave. I didn't stay for the aftermath. I didn't want explanations, or apologies, or excuses. I'd already heard every lie they had. I picked up my coat, walked to the door. As I reached for the handle, my brother finally found his voice. Wait. I didn't turn around. The door closed behind me, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. I didn't drive far that night. I pulled over a few blocks away, turned off the engine, and just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel. My body felt hollow, like everything that had been weighing me down finally dropped all at once. My phone started ringing almost immediately. I didn't answer. Texts followed. Missed calls. I watched the screen light up and go dark over and over, and for the first time since this all began, I felt nothing.
No anger. No satisfaction. No regret.
Just quiet. The days after, the fallout was messy. Not dramatic in the way people expect, but slow and deeply uncomfortable. My parents came over 2 days later. Together. That alone told me how badly everything had gone. My mom cried before she even sat down. I didn't know, she kept saying. I didn't know. My dad didn't say much at first. He just stared at the floor, jaw tight, like he was replaying months of conversations in his head and finally hearing what had been missing. When he did speak, his voice was flat. He lied to us, he said. Both of them did. I nodded. There was no relief in hearing that. Just confirmation. They apologized, awkwardly, imperfectly, for believing the wrong story, for not asking questions, for assuming silence meant guilt. I accepted the apology, but something fundamental had shifted. Trust doesn't snap back into place just because the truth comes out. My brother. I haven't spoken to my brother since that night. Not once. At first he tried. Texts turned into voicemails. Voicemails turned into long, rambling messages that swung wildly between apology and justification. We didn't mean to hurt you. You were already distant. We fell in love.
It wasn't supposed to come out like that.
I never responded. Eventually, the messages stopped. My parents stopped mentioning him altogether. When his name came up accidentally, the room went quiet in a way that made it clear there was no script for what to say anymore. It was like he'd become a ghost everyone pretended not to see. The divorce was brutal, but clean. There were no dramatic courtroom moments. No shouting matches. Just paperwork. Meetings. Finality. The prenup held. The house went to me. I sold it a month later. I couldn't stand the idea of someone else living in those rooms while pretending nothing had happened there. My wife moved in with Evan almost immediately. I heard about it through family, information I didn't ask for but couldn't fully escape. They tried to present it as proof that everything had been worth it. It wasn't. 3 months later, my brother walked away. Apparently, he couldn't trust someone who'd lied so easily to the person closest to her. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so exhausting. The way people look at you after. Something people don't tell you about public betrayals is how people treat you afterward. Not with hostility. With caution. Like you survived something contagious. Friends spoke carefully around me, like one wrong word might reopen a wound. Family checked in too often at first, then not enough. No one knew where I fit anymore. And honestly, neither did I. Therapy and the long rebuild. I started therapy because I didn't trust my own reactions anymore. I needed someone neutral to tell me whether my instincts were broken or sharpened. Turns out, they weren't broken. They'd just been ignored. I learned how much damage comes from being gaslit quietly, not with yelling, but with concern. With gentle suggestions that your feelings are the problem. I learned that betrayal doesn't just hurt because of what someone did. It hurts because of how many versions of reality you have to unlearn afterward. The quiet life. I moved to a smaller place. New city. New routines. No shared history with anyone around me. At first, the silence felt unbearable. Then it started to feel like relief. No bracing myself when someone picked up their phone. No rehearsing conversations in my head. No wondering what version of me was being discussed in another room. Just space.
And time.
Meeting someone new. I didn't go looking for anyone. It happened the way real things usually do, unexpectedly, without pressure. She asked questions. Not interrogations. Just curiosity. And when I answered, she didn't flinch. Didn't minimize. Didn't rush to reassure me that not everyone is like that. When I told her the worst thing that ever happened to me, she didn't try to fix it. She just listened. That's when I knew I was finally safe again. The ending I didn't expect. For a long time, I thought losing my wife and my brother was the end of my life. The moment everything I trusted collapsed. Now, standing where I am, it feels different. It feels like the moment I stopped living inside a story someone else was writing for me. The moment I chose truth over being liked. The moment I learned that silence isn't empty, it's honest. And for the first time in my life, I trust the quiet.